This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
The British Army was known as the best trained army in the world at that particular time.
The Southern Campaign is really the ending of the Revolutionary War. Without this battle, I don't think that the Revolutionary War would have come out the way that it came out.
Had it not been for this battle and the other battles in this particular part of the country, we may be speaking the Queen's English right now.
The Battle of Kings Mountain dealt an unexpected blow to British plans.
We like to believe that this is where this fight, this first real victory was where the patriot spirit was kind of solidified in the South. That's where the importance of Kings Mountain really comes in. It was kind of the first of a series of dominoes that set in motion the collapse of the British Empire in America.
In the next half hour, we'll explore the significance of the Battle of Kings Mountain, learn how the National Park protects this historic site, and meet the people who make the history come alive.
The following episode of Trail of History is brought to you by Central Piedmont Community College and viewers like you. Thank you.
Bragg Financial Advisors, a family-owned wealth management firm providing investment management and tax and estate planning for families, individuals, and institutions for more than 50 years. Committed to our clients, to education, and our community.
Hello, I'm Tony Zeiss, president of Central Piedmont Community College. You know, the rich and diverse history of the Charlotte region is just wonderful, and we at the college want to bring it to you and share it. We understand the importance of history. We understand the importance of learning from the past so that we can do better in the future. I want to tell you that you're in for a real treat. The History Department at Central Piedmont Community College has partnered with our television station to bring you this special, one-of-a-kind history program. Stay tuned. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Hello, I'm Gary Ritter, and welcome to A Trail of History. Valley Forge, Concord and Lexington, Bunker Hill, these are the names most often associated with the Revolution. Though not as well known, the Southern Campaign was crucial to securing independence, and right here, the Battle of Kings Mountain was a turning point that not only provided a tactical advantage, but also helped to boost morale for the Patriot cause. Welcome to Bessemer City High School, home of the Yellow Jackets.
The rights of citizens. According to what we studied and John Locke, where do our rights come from?
Where you'll find teacher Rick Stuck shaping young minds.
I teach pretty much civics and economics, and I also teach U.S. history, world history, psychology, sociology, basic social studies.
With a laptop on every desk and a digital projector, he's surrounded by the latest in educational technology.
Speech, press, religion, assemble and petition.
Sharply attired, Stuck sets an example of professionalism.
Our school likes us to dress professionally, so I wear a tie, often wear a suit, and I tell my kids this is the only place I wear a suit and tie.
But every chance he gets,
The easiest way to tan hide is poker.
Stuck trades in his suit and tie for buckskins and moccasins.
I've just always had a enjoyment of history, and in particular, how little it takes to actually survive.
So he immerses himself in 18th century life.
We all are in the militia. About the age of 15 to 55, one has to join and defend the settlements. So when a militia is called to an incident, a problem, I load up my wagon with my medical supplies and I follow the militia unit.
And as you might have guessed, Stuck takes on a whole new persona.
Being the doctor, I do everything. There's no specializing like there might be in a couple hundred years. I pull the teeth, I do the surgeries, I do the bloodletting, I take care of everything.
It's through that persona Stuck goes from teaching students in the classroom to teaching visitors at living history events. Events like the spring encampment at Kings Mountain National Military Park. Every year, volunteers painstakingly recreate a Revolutionary War era militia camp for folks to explore. There's a spinning demonstration, kids learn new games, and visitors get to see and hear the weapons used on this battleground, October 7th, 1780.
The Battle of Kings Mountain was fought here on this ridgetop.
By the fall of 1780, the American Revolutionary War was in its 5th year, when British Major Patrick Ferguson made a fateful decision.
Ferguson chose this spot primarily because of its water source and the fact that there was a colonial roadbed that came right through this area. It made easy access for his troops.
But in order to understand the Battle of Kings Mountain, you have to understand what led up to it, the Southern Campaign of the American Revolution.
The Southern Campaign is really the ending of the Revolutionary War. When we go out and we look at the Southern Campaign, all kinds of stuff had happened in the North. We have Saratoga, the French go out and join, there's all kinds of very interesting things that are happening. But in 1779, the British decide they're going to use a Southern strategy. They believe very strongly that people in the South will flock to the banners of king and country. They'll go out and get people from South Carolina, from North Carolina. They'll march up to Virginia and they'll end the war. So they start an invasion. In 1779, they go out and attack Savannah. They take Savannah. Then they go out and they attack Charleston. And when they attack Charleston, we have a fairly large army there, but they're sick. And Charleston gets completely surrounded. And within a very short period of time, Charleston surrenders.
Meanwhile, in the northern colonies prior to the Southern Campaign, American and British forces were effectively in a stalemate. But now with Charleston firmly under British control, General Cornwallis marched his army across South Carolina toward Charlotte. The British were counting on Southern loyalists to join them. As part of his plan, General Cornwallis sent Major Patrick Ferguson to upstate South Carolina.
And his job was to go all through the upper areas of South Carolina, western North Carolina, and go out and gather as many people to the Loyalist cause as he can. And he's very successful in going out and doing that.
But Ferguson's initial success didn't last long.
But what they didn't reckon on was the spirit, the patriot spirit that was building in the back country, and this disdain for what was happening with the British. He sent forth a message, a warning, if you will, to those patriots and militiamen that were on the frontier, really in Tennessee and North Carolina and Virginia.
And Ferguson had sent a threat over the mountains that he would come across the mountains and hang their leaders and lay waste to their country with fire and sword. Well, the likes of Isaac Shelby and Colonel Campbell and the other Patriot commanders from the upper parts of North Carolina, and what is now Tennessee and Virginia, and then in this particular area, they just didn't take likely to that.
And the Over-Mountain Men, as they're called when we talk about the Battle of Kings Mountain, are these people that had illegally moved to the other side of the mountains. They're going out and they're trying to live a life away from the rest of civilization, but are not really excited about being part of the British Empire any longer. Many of them are Scotch, some of them are Germans. They're living their life off on their own.
Ferguson's threats backfired and served as a rallying cry for the militias over the mountains. In late September, the Over-the-Mountain Men, as they were called, started pursuing Ferguson. Some trekked more than 300 miles. They were joined along the way by other militias, such as the South Fork Boys from Lincoln County, plus men from Mecklenburg County in North Carolina and York County in South Carolina, bringing the combined Patriot force to over 1,000, all with one goal in mind: to hunt down Ferguson and his army. In the high stakes of war, Patriot commanders recognized the importance of good intelligence. In stepped 18-year-old Patriot spy Joseph Kerr.
He goes to Ferguson's camp. He tells Ferguson that he's very afraid. He's been threatened by the Patriots. He's a loyal Tory. He's a loyalist. He wants to go out and help king and country. And he wants to know where Ferguson's going so he can follow along so he would be safe. One of Ferguson's men tells him that they are heading back to Charlotte along the road, and they will be going just north of Kings Mountain.
Remnants of the colonial road used by Ferguson's army still exist today inside Kings Mountain National Military Park. While the Patriots were familiar with the road, they didn't know where Ferguson would camp next and needed more intelligence. Two men, Enoch Gilmer and Major William Chronicle, set out to gather information.
Enoch Gilmer goes to a family's house that is right along the road, and he finds out that there are two young ladies that had just delivered chickens over to the army that's up on top of this hill. And these two young ladies tell Gilmer exactly where Patrick Ferguson is. They tell him what Ferguson's wearing. They go out and tell them all the information that he really needs to know about his location.
And they had been pursuing Ferguson for almost 2 weeks and had covered quite a bit of ground, but this is where they finally caught him, here on Kings Mountain. This particular ridge, people and historians question why Ferguson chose this spot. I don't think he really intended on fighting a battle here. I think he was just awaiting word from Cornwallis, who was in Charlotte at the time of this battle.
But for whatever reason, it's here the combined Patriots militias attacked Ferguson's camp. On October 7th, 1780, Patriot forces devised a simple plan.
There is a plan that just basically is, let's go run up the hill. Let's go out and surround it. Let's go run up the hill. We're going to fight Indian style. Each man is supposed to be his own commander. Each individual grouping, you go out and do your own thing. You just, get up the hill as best you can.
As the Patriots made their move, British commander Patrick Ferguson waited on this ridge, certain he and his men had nothing to fear.
Patrick Ferguson thinks of them very poorly. He believes that if he gets on top of this little hill and he goes out and is able to go out and do a couple of bayonet charges, that they will just go off into the woods, because that's what's always happened to the local militia. The local militia can't really stand up to British soldiers.
However, this particular battle was quite a bit different than most Revolutionary War battles in that this was a British commander overseeing a Loyalist force who had been trained in the use of the Brown Bess musket and the bayonet.
The Patriot militia came armed with long rifles, which were slower to load but far more accurate than the British muskets. The Patriots also had another tactical advantage: the terrain itself.
Because the Patriot forces caught up with Ferguson here at Kings Mountain, this topography and this ridgetop played significantly into the outcome of the Battle of Kings Mountain.
The tactics that were employed, that Shelby and some of the other leaders employed here at Kings Mountain as they came up the mountain, were to hide behind trees and hide behind rocks, whereas the British, they fought in formation.
You can see the rock outcroppings all around the battlefield on this particular side. It offered cover for the Patriot forces who were ascending the hill. You had trees that were somewhat larger than the trees we have now that offered them cover. And the Patriot forces weren't fighting in linear tactics. Where I'm standing now, I'm looking straight on at the side of this mountain. You can imagine, as narrow as this ridge is, the Loyalist forces on top of this ridge were being silhouetted against the sky, so they were easy targets. And they were literally caught in a crossfire between the Patriot forces on this side of the ridge versus the Patriot forces on that side of the ridge.
The fighting lasted just over an hour. Patriot forces killed nearly 300 Loyalists, wounded over 150, and over 600 were taken prisoner. Patriot marksmen shot Major Patrick Ferguson from his horse, and the 36-year-old Scotsman died from his wounds. He's buried here at Kings Mountain.
There at the side of Ferguson's grave is a traditional Scottish cairn, and a lot of the lore from childhood days is you gathered a rock when you walked around the trail, and then you placed a rock on Ferguson's grave to keep Ferguson's spirit in. When in fact, when you place a rock on a Scottish cairn, it's actually honoring that individual.
The Patriots fared much better, with less than 100 killed or wounded.
The Americans, who had been looking for a victory, get a victory. It's not only a victory where they kind of win a small skirmish, they've won a few of those, but they capture an entire army, a whole group. They capture, between killed and captured, 1,100 men. This is a large force. They kill a hated commander. They are really proud of themselves. They have done something really great.
Some historians consider the Patriot victory at Kings Mountain a turning point in the Revolutionary War.
After this battle, the whole concept of being a loyalist, of fighting for king and country, virtually evaporates.
We like to believe that this is where this fight, this first real victory was where the patriot spirit was kind of solidified in the South and really created this movement that led to other successful battles at Cowpens, and even though at Guilford Courthouse it wasn't necessarily a win for the Patriot, but it was a huge moral loss for the British, and ultimately victory at Yorktown. That's where the importance of Kings Mountain really comes in. It was kind of the first of a series of dominoes that set in motion the collapse of the British Empire in America.
I grew up about 12 miles from here, and had always been an outdoorsman.
Chief Ranger Chris Revels knows Kings Mountain National Military Park better than most.
I've been here since 1980. My role here as Chief Ranger and Designated Site Manager is to make sure all operations are done with the intent of the park mission in mind, to preserve and protect this resource, primarily the battlefield area and the buffer area that exists for the battlefield.
From law enforcement and daily park operations to maintenance of the trails and facilities, Revels oversees everything.
All of these activities are focusing on the actual preservation of the resource and protection of the resource.
With nearly 4,000 acres, it's a large resource to protect. Over the years, the Park Service hasn't been the only caretaker. In the years since the battle, different community groups have worked to ensure that what occurred here will not be forgotten. The Chronicle marker dated 1815 commemorates the spot Patriot Major William Chronicle died. According to the Park Service, it's the second oldest Revolutionary War monument in the country. Visitors pass the Kings Mountain Centennial Monument, placed at the top of the mountain in 1880 to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the battle. In 1909, the federal government built the United States Monument. At more than 80 feet tall, the obelisk recognizes the bravery and sacrifices of those who fought here. Down a side trail, this small monument marks the spot where President Herbert Hoover addressed an estimated 70,000 people who gathered here to commemorate the 150-year anniversary of the battle in 1930. Since the 1800s, one of the strongest partners in the efforts to protect the battlefield has been the Daughters of the American Revolution, or DAR. By 1900, local chapters of the Daughters of the American Revolution acquired the land that encompasses the battlefield. In 1931, the group donated the land to the federal government, which established Kings Mountain National Military Park.
The Park Service recognizes the DAR's assistance, and the DAR recognizes the importance of the National Park System to preserve these properties, because we could not do this on our own. We're small groups, and it takes a lot of people to keep a 4,000-acre park in good shape. So we cheer them on, we help them out, we donate our time, money, and energy to draw attention to the work and to help educate the citizens about the importance of our history here.
Even to this day, the Daughters of the American Revolution actively work to discover and commemorate those who fought here. In 2016, the DAR placed this marker recognizing the contributions made by African Americans at the battle.
I hope that it will help especially the children see that there were many more people involved in this battle. It was a much more diverse group of people that fought here than just the Scots-Irish. It represented our nation then, and it represents our nation now.
Daughters of the American Revolution member Loretta Cozart has her own connection to the battle.
As I did the research, we realized that we did have a connection here at Kings Mountain. And one of my ancestors was a doctor for Colonel Isaac Shelby. And that is, that to me means everything, that our family played a role here, and it makes this place even more special.
The purpose of Kings Mountain National Military Park is really to preserve the history and culture associated with this Patriot victory here at Kings Mountain, really the first Patriot victory in the South.
The park fulfills its mission by offering visitors different ways to engage with its history. Inside the visitor center, you learn about the men who fought here and the weapons used in the battle. Outside, visitors can follow trails to historical markers on the battlefield, and on certain weekends, the park hosts living history events, including Military Through the Ages, held every Memorial Day weekend.
We want folks to be able to see what life is like in camp, what life is like for American soldiers, and see that people are not so different from 240 years ago up through the modern day.
Ron Crawley traveled from Spartanburg, South Carolina.
It's a great opportunity to meet people, to actually talk to a large number of spectators that come in. We get to show them our impression, our, what it is we do, what our military impression is, as well as show equipment, help them understand the life of the soldier better.
Under the watchful eye of park rangers, the big highlight of the day, the weapons demonstration. The crowd watches everything from a musket to a grenade launcher. Then, the big finale. But it's not just the park working to keep the history of the battle alive. In the city of Kings Mountain, a theater group performs Bob Inman's play, Liberty Mountain, which brings to life the story of this historic battle. And just 12 miles from the battleground, in rural York County, you'll find artist Thomas Kelly Pauley painting in his home studio.
What struck me when I moved to the upstate of South Carolina was so much Revolutionary War history's here.
His love of history started at an early age.
I blame my father for it, actually. We couldn't go on a summer vacation without stopping at some dead president's tomb.
He's working on a series of portraits depicting key figures from the battle.
It requires mineral spirits and a few toxic agents, but a good line of brushes and a lot of time and patience. With oil painting, you go from dark to light when you work. So you start out with the darks and as a foundation, and you bring it to full color.
With each delicate brushstroke, Pauley builds on that color foundation, but knows there's more to each image than just oil paints and canvas.
Enough research and talk to enough people and descendants of some of the families that I'll give a good reading of these people and allow them to be brought more to life and come to life so people can see them. Kids especially these days identify and connect better with something they can see and touch, and I think that's important.
One of only 9 parks designated as a National Military Park, the battlefield at Kings Mountain shares that designation with other key battlefields from our history, including Gettysburg and Vicksburg.
So a national military park, such as Kings Mountain National Military Park, tells a story, a larger story of a military engagement rather than a specific battle.
More than 230 years after the battle, the National Park Service has grouped Kings Mountain with Cowpens National Battlefield, 96 National Historic Site, and the Over Mountain Victory National Historic Trail, all with one shared mission.
This new idea with the multiple parks telling the same story or expounding on the story has been huge. It's had an incredible impact on our ability to educate the public on the overall theme of the Southern Campaign of the American Revolution. Most of America, really, truly most of the world, when you ask them about the American Revolution and you ask them to name some of the places in the American Revolution, they'll tell you, they'll come up with Concord and Lexington right away, and maybe Bunker Hill, and some will come up with Saratoga, and every once in a while Princeton. All battles in the North. Very, very seldom, almost never, will somebody talk about Kings Mountain, or talk about Camden, or talk about Cowpens.
This battle, this story is part of this country's history. It's part of the struggle and the strife that our forefathers had to develop and organize this country.
It's an important chapter of our history the National Park Service, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and other individuals hope to preserve for generations to come. I'm Gary Ritter. Thank you for watching Trail of History, right here on PBS Charlotte.
A production of PBS Charlotte.